Hello again, it's Neil Barassi here from Regional Psychology to give another bit of an update on some mental health tips that I'd like to discuss with you today. Now, as you know, I do like my psychology experiments, and this one is a very important one for lots of reasons. And again, these experiments are they are very unethical by today's standards, but this one was done in the early 1960s. But first I want to ask you, have you ever worked in a situation or been in a situation that you felt quite helpless in? Whether or not it's a relationship or workplace or organisation where you feel your input is not appreciated, not warranted. When you want to bring about some change or make some sort of concerted effort to make things better, but it falls on deaf ears. Then you either decide to leave or whatever, or you stay there and basically give up and go with the flow. Well, that's what we would call learned helplessness. And for today's topic of learned helplessness, this experiment I was talking about, as is in the 1960s, they wanted to find out a little bit more about what learned helplessness was, depression and anxiety and things like that. So the researchers in their laboratory, as they do, they rigged up a closed off area, let's just say a 4 by 4 meters area of a metal floor with a cage around it. Now, it's not exactly that, but I'm giving you it in brief details. And what they did is that they had a dog in this caged area, and because the floor was metal, they electrified it, which meant that every now and then they would flick a switch and the floor would become electrified and it would give a shock to the dog. Not enough to kill it or injure it, but just enough to make it uncomfortable. And the dog would yelp and bark and try and get out of the cage as it would. Anyway, they would turn it on for 30 seconds to a minute, then they'd turn it off again for a little while, then they'd turn it back on. And every time it come back on, the dog would go crazy trying to get out, then they'd turn it off and let it settle down. Anyway, long story short, they did this for a long enough period, on and off, to test out the dog. And eventually, when they would turn the floor on to electrify it, the dog would just sit there and not make a noise, not even get up, just basically learnt to tolerate the pain or the shock that it was getting. Why? Because it knew it just couldn't get out. It tried many times to escape, but couldn't, so it just basically gave up. When we apply that to life, it's very similar, is that there's times when we try, and whatever we're trying to do doesn't happen. So people can generally give up on things. But this is where it gets a bit interesting. They did take the cage down eventually, and again they will electrify the floor, but then the dog wouldn't try and get off that floor. Even though it could get out and could break away, it just basically gave in. And that's just the interesting part, is that it just learned to put up with it for so long that when it had the opportunity to get out of it, it didn't. When we fast forward this and we apply it to our life in general, with this learned helplessness, we can be in situations that we feel we have no control over. And we tolerate or we put up with the pain long enough to get to a point where we feel we've got no way of escape, so we just learn to go with the flow and essentially give up and give in. The message I wanted to portray today is to, if you ever feel you're in that situation, don't give up and certainly don't give in. Don't succumb to the pressures or the naysayers telling you not to do something, or not respecting you or appreciating or validating any of your input. If you believe in something enough, you need to continue to keep pushing for it. Now, that could be anything, can apply to anything, but the world is full of people that have given up and quit. But again, the world is full of people that have become, quite popular and famous for it. Many stories you hear of rock stars or movie stars, politicians or whatever, of people that have achieved greatness in their life but have met many hurdles and barriers and people that told them to give up. But they didn't. They continued to push through whatever barriers they had because they believed in it long enough. So that's the take-home message I'd like you to take on board today, is if you feel you're in a situation where you're just giving in because you can't be bothered fighting anymore, try not to succumb to learned helplessness. Try to realize you have more control over your destiny than what you think you do, and continue to fight the good fight because it's worth it in the end. All right, you take care. Until next time. Bye.